The entire palace froze when silk ripped, and the princess stood exposed before the world. Cameras stopped. Power smiled. Silence waited. Then a royal guard did the unthinkable, tearing off his uniform to shield her and turning his back on authority itself. What followed shattered tradition, exposed cruelty, and proved that courage outranks crowns. This is not just a royal story. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and watch till the end. The hall shimmered with expectation. Golden chandeliers poured light across polished marble floors, reflecting off crystal glasses and ceremonial medals. The State Gallery of Ashburn Palace carried the quiet weight of history, the kind that pressed gently on the chest and reminded every guest where they stood. Diplomats spoke in softened tones. Cameras hovered at calculated angles. Every movement carried meaning. This evening honored legacy. At the center of the gathering stood Princess Eller. She did not stumble. She did not rush. She walked forward in a pale ceremonial gown, designed to represent continuity and grace. The fabric shimmered softly under the lights, each stitch deliberate, each fold perfect. Heads turned as she passed. This was expected. She was young, composed, and symbolic. Sergeant Rowan Hale noticed something else. He stood 3 paces behind her, posture precise, eyes alert. 15 years in the Royal Guard had taught him how danger rarely announced itself loudly. Sometimes it arrived wrapped in smiles, in tradition, in rooms filled with applause. Princess Alara stopped near the center of the hall. Queen Marielle stood nearby, poised, watching. She gestured smoothly, calling her daughter forward with a practiced smile. Cameras adjusted. Murmurs softened. Then it happened. The queen reached out as if to help adjust the gown. For a fraction of a second. Nothing seemed wrong, then silk tore. The sound cut through the hall sharper than glass breaking. Fabrics split along the seam, exposing far more than ceremony ever allowed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras froze mid-frame. Conversations died instantly. Princess Alara stood frozen. She did not scream. She did not cry. Shock held her upright while humiliation burned through her face. Her hands lifted instinctively, useless against the exposure. Time slowed as hundreds of eyes locked onto a moment that never should have existed. Rowan moved. He did not wait for orders. He did not scan for approval. He stepped forward, removing his tunic in one fluid motion, wrapping it around the princess's shoulders and torso. The red fabric covered her completely. He turned his body outward, shielding her from every angle. Placing himself between her and the world, the hall breathed again. Unevenly, Princess Alara's breath shattered, her knees weakened. And Rowan shifted to support her without touching her face, without crowding her space. His stance stayed firm, protective. Final. Queen Marielle laughed lightly. A wardrobe mishap, she said smoothly. These things happen. Rohan did not move. Perhaps the princess is too sensitive, the queen added, her tone calm, dismissive. We will continue. Rowan turned. The motion was slow enough for every camera to follow. Every guest watched as the guard faced the one figure no one else challenged openly. This did not happen by accident, Rowan said. The room fell into absolute silence. I am sworn to protect, he continued. Voice steady. Protection does not end when power becomes uncomfortable. Queen Marielle's smile hardened. You forget your place, she said. Rowan did not raise his voice. My place is here, he replied, between harm and the one it targets. Princess Alara trembled beneath the tunic. Her fingers clutched the red fabric like an anchor. Tears finally fell, silent but unstoppable. Soaking into the cloth that shielded her, Rowan adjusted his stance again, angling his body to block every lens. This event is concluded, said no one argued. Guards moved instinctively, creating space. Officials hesitated, then followed. The orchestra stopped playing. The chandeliers felt too bright now. Rowan escorted Princess Alara from the hall slowly. Deliberately, his body never leaving her side. Behind them, whispers erupted. Some shocked. Some furious. Some relieved the palace had witnessed many things that night. Grace broken, power exposed, and one moment where duty chose humanity over ceremony. As the doors closed behind them, Rowan felt the weight settle fully. This was only the beginning. The doors of the state gallery closed with a sound too soft for what they carried behind them. Inside the private antechamber, Princess Alara sat on a velvet bench, wrapped fully in the red tunic. Her breathing came in shallow waves, uneven and sharp, as though her body had not yet accepted that the moment had ended. The fabric around her shoulders felt heavy, not with weight, but with meaning. It smelled faintly of polish and cold air. Safety had a scent now. Sergeant Rowan Hale stood near the doorway, back straight, eyes forward. He kept distance by choice, not command. Protection did not always require proximity. Sometimes it required restraint. A lady-in-waiting approached with a folded shawl, hands trembling. "Your Highness," she said softly. Alara lifted her gaze. Her eyes were red, yet clear. She nodded once. Rowan turned slightly, creating a barrier while the shawl replaced the tunic. Only when Alara signaled readiness did he step back. The red uniform returned to his shoulders, slower now. Deliberate, footsteps approached. Lord Chancellor Everon entered with 2 senior officials. Their expressions carried concern layered with calculation. "We must stabilize the narrative," one official said immediately. "The guests are confused. Media presence remains heavy." Princess Alara stiffened. Everon raised a hand. "Careful," he said. "Choose words that fit the moment." The official adjusted his tone. "Of course, the incident will be described as an unfortunate wardrobe failure. No intent. No fault." Rowan's jaw tightened. "With respect," he said, "that explanation does not protect her."
Ow.
The second official frowned. "Sergeant, your role here has concluded." Everon glanced at Rowan, then back to Alara. "Do you wish him to remain?" Everon asked her. Alara hesitated. The room waited. "Yes," she said. The answer settled the matter in the gallery outside. Queen Marielle addressed a small circle of dignitaries. Her composure remained intact. Her voice carried assurance. "A minor mishap," she repeated. "Exaggerated by overreaction?" Some nodded politely. Others did not. A foreign envoy leaned toward a colleague. "Mishaps do not tear with such force," he murmured. Cameras captured the Queen's calm expression. They did not capture the tension beneath it. Back in the antechamber, Alara stood. "I do not want them to pretend," she said quietly. Everon turned fully toward her. "Pretend what?" he asked. "That it meant nothing," she replied. "That I imagined it." Silence followed. Rowan spoke carefully. "Minimizing harm extends it," he said. The first official bristled. "This is a state matter." "This is a child," Rowan answered. "States exist to serve people, not erase them." Everon closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with resolve. "The reception ends now," he declared. "Guests will depart. Statements will wait." Outside, the orchestra resumed briefly, then stopped. Announcements echoed through the hall. Movement shifted from performance to departure. Princess Alara watched through a narrow window as the crowd dispersed. Her hands shook again, slower this time. "Everyone saw," she said. "Yes," Everon replied. "And everyone will remember differently." She turned toward Rowan. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked. Rowan answered without pause. "No." The certainty steadied her. Elsewhere in the palace, private conversations grew sharper. Advisors debated damage control. Courtiers chose sides quietly. Messages traveled faster than official statements. A senior aide confronted Queen Marielle in her private salon. "The guard challenged you publicly," the aide said. "That cannot stand." Marielle's expression remained smooth. "He forgot his place," she said. "The story will correct itself." "Stories resist correction when witnesses exist," the aide replied. Marielle dismissed. "The concern with a gesture, power, defines truth," she said. The words lingered near midnight. Rowan received summons, to report to the guard command office at first light. No explanation accompanied the order. Captain Alistair Reed met him in the corridor. They will question your conduct, Reed said quietly. Prepare. I'm prepared, Rohan replied. Captain Reed studied him. You may stand alone, Rohan nodded. I stood before. In her chamber, Princess Alara finally slept, exhaustion overtaking fear. The shawl lay folded beside her. The red tunic rested on a chair, turned by request. She dreamed of light breaking through stone. Morning approached with no resolution. Only intention. The palace had tried to explain the moment away. It failed, because silence had already lost its grip. And truth, once seen, refused to fold back into fabric. Morning arrived without softness. Asterisk. Ashburn Palace woke beneath a tension that pressed into every corridor and stairwell. Servants moved carefully. Guards spoke less. Even the light felt restrained as it filtered through tall windows and landed across stone floors polished by centuries of order. Princess Alara sat at a small writing desk near her chamber window. A cup of untouched tea cooled beside her. She stared at her reflection in the glass, studying a face that looked older than it had the night before. Not broken, changed. Lady Serene, her appointed attendant, stood nearby. You do not need to attend lessons today, Lady Serene said gently. The Chancellor has granted you space. Alara nodded, then shook her head. I do not want space, she replied. I want clarity. Lady Serene did not interrupt. Alara stood. I want to speak, she said. Not later. Today. The words carried weight beyond volume. Across the palace, Sergeant Rowan Hale stood before the Guard Review Council. 3 officers sat behind a long table, uniforms crisp, expressions neutral. You acted without command, one officer said. I acted with purpose, Rowan replied. You disrupted a state function, another added. I prevented further harm, Rowan answered. The chair of the council leaned forward. You placed yourself above protocol, Rowan met his gaze. I placed a child above comfort, he said. Silence followed. The chair exhaled. You are relieved of ceremonial duty pending inquiry. Rowan nodded once. Understood. He turned to leave, posture unchanged as Rowan stepped into the corridor. Captain Reed approached. The palace prepares statements, Reed said quietly. They intend to minimize. Rowan's eyes narrowed slightly. Minimize what? Impact, Reed replied. Responsibility. Rowan said nothing. In the East Wing, Chancellor Everon convened a smaller council. Advisors spoke in measured tones, weighing optics against consequence. Then the doors opened. Princess Alara entered. She did not wear ceremonial colors. She wore a simple dress. Her posture remained upright, her steps deliberate. I asked to be heard. She said. The room stilled. Everon gestured for her to sit. I will stand, Alara replied. She took a breath. What happened last night did not feel like an accident, she said. It felt like control. An advisor shifted uncomfortably. I felt exposed, Alara continued. Not because fabric tore, but because dignity was treated as expendable. No one interrupted. I was told to accept it quietly, she said. I will not. Everon folded his hands. What do you ask? I ask for truth, Alara replied. And I ask for accountability. The word landed firmly. Outside the chamber, word spread quickly. The princess had spoken. Not privately. Not rehearsed. Direct Queen Marielle learned within minutes. She entered the council chamber without invitation. Presence commanding attention. This is unnecessary, she said. Family matters require discretion. Alara turned to face her fully. Discretion protected nothing, she said. It protected silence. Gasps rippled. You misunderstand intent, Marielle replied calmly. You misread guidance. I understand how it felt, Alara said. That is enough. The room held its breath. Chancellor Everon rose. The princess has made a formal statement, he said. An independent inquiry will follow. Marielle's eyes hardened. You allow a child to challenge authority, Everon answered steadily. Authority must answer when dignity is harmed. The decision stood. Later that afternoon, Rowan learned of the inquiry. Captain Reed found him near the guard barracks. She spoke, Reed said simply. Rowan closed his eyes briefly. Not in relief. In respect? Good, he replied. Elara requested to see him before evening. They met in a quiet courtyard, ivy climbing pale stone walls. I told them, she said. Rowan inclined his head. That took courage. I learned it, she replied. From watching, they stood in silence. Will this become harder? Elara asked. Yes. Rowan answered honestly. Will it matter? She asked. Yes, he replied again. She nodded, absorbing truth without embellishment. As dusk settled, palace gates remained closed. Statements paused. Advisors recalculated. The narrative no longer belonged to one voice. Across the city, whispers turned into conversations. Diplomats spoke. Staff reflected. Guards adjusted posture not from fear, but awareness. That night, Princess Elara slept without the shawl, folded beside her. She slept with the window open. The palace did not feel smaller. It felt exposed, and exposure, for the first time, felt like progress. Pressure arrived the next morning, wrapped in formality. It came as sealed envelopes, guarded meetings, and polite phrases that carried sharp edges beneath their courtesy. Ashburn Palace returned to its routines, yet nothing felt ordinary. Every step echoed with awareness. Every glance measured loyalty. Sergeant Rowan Hale reported to duty as ordered, though his assignment changed. He no longer stood behind dignitaries or ceremonial processions. He was placed at the outer corridors, visible but removed, present yet excluded. It was a quiet punishment. Designed to remind him of hierarchy, Rowan accepted it without protest, Princess Elara noticed. Immediately, she walked to the eastern corridor. With Lady Serene and slowed when she saw Rowan. Stationed near the archway, the distance between them felt deliberate. They moved you, she said softly when she approached. Yes. Rowan replied. Because you stood, she said. Because I protected, he answered. She studied his face, searching for regret. She found none. I am sorry, she said. Rowan shook his head. You have nothing to carry that does not belong to you. Behind closed doors, Queen Marielle gathered allies. Her voice remained calm, her arguments precise. The guard undermined authority, she said. If that becomes acceptable, order collapses. Some nodded. Others hesitated. A senior counselor spoke carefully. Public sentiment has shifted. Resistance may amplify scrutiny. Marielle's gaze sharpened. Sentiment fades. Structure remains, yet structure had begun to bend. The independent inquiry commenced quietly. Advocates interviewed staff. Footage was reviewed frame by frame. Accounts aligned more than expected. Patterns emerged that no statement could erase. Princess Elara participated without coercion. She answered questions with clarity, not drama. She described feelings without accusation. Each word carried honesty shaped by reflection rather than fear. I want dignity to matter, she said. Not only for me, her composure unsettled those who expected fragility. Meanwhile, Rowan faced his own reckoning. He stood before the guard ethics board, a smaller chamber with fewer witnesses and heavier implications. You challenged a senior royal publicly, the chair stated. I addressed harm publicly, Rowan replied. You embarrassed the institution, another officer added. I prevented humiliation from continuing. Rowan answered. The chair leaned forward. Would you act the same, knowing the consequences? Yes, Rowan said. Silence followed. Outside the chamber, Captain Reed waited again. They are divided, Reed said. Some support you. Others fear precedent. Fear reveals itself when control weakens, Rowan replied. Princess Elara spent afternoons in the palace gardens now, reclaiming spaces once avoided. She walked paths she once hurried through. She paused when she wished. Guards followed at respectful distance. One afternoon, she stopped near a rose trellis and looked back at the palace. "They will try to make this quiet," she said to Lady Serene. "They may," Lady Serene replied. "Quiet does not erase truth." Alara nodded. That evening she requested a private audience with Chancellor Everon. "I want to speak again," she said. "Not as a response, as intention." Everon listened. "I want change that lasts," Alara continued. "Not apologies that fade." Everon considered her words. "Change requires challenge," he said, "and endurance." "I am ready," she replied. The following day, a memorandum circulated through the palace. New protective protocols were proposed. Oversight expanded. Advocacy roles strengthened. It did not announce blame. It announced responsibility. Queen Marielle read the document in silence. Her authority had not vanished, but its shape had altered. She summoned Rowan. They stood across from each other in a private hall, light slanting through tall windows. "You forced this," she said. "I revealed it." Rowan replied. "You defied expectation," she continued. "I upheld duty," he answered. She studied him. "Measuring, you believe this makes you righteous," she said. "No," Rowan replied. "It makes me accountable." The word lingered. When she dismissed him, her expression remained unreadable. That night, Princess Alara stood before the mirror in her chamber. She traced the neckline of a new dress, simple and strong. She saw herself clearly now, not as symbol, but as person. She thought of the moment she had been shielded, not hidden, protected. Outside, Rowan resumed his post beneath the archway, the same place where he had first noticed something wrong. The palace lights glowed warmly behind him. The city beyond breathed quietly. The struggle had not ended, but the balance had shifted. Standing firm carried weight, and those who bore it no longer stood alone. The inquiry entered its final phase without ceremony. No banners announced it. No public summons echoed through the palace. Yet everyone felt it. Ashburn Palace carried a tension that no protocol could soften. Decisions were forming behind closed doors, and once formed, they would not bend easily. Princess Alara waited in the East Council chamber, seated alone at the long table where generations of authority had spoken without challenge. Morning light spilled across the polished surface, illuminating old carvings worn smooth by time. She placed her hands flat on the wood, grounding herself. She did not feel small. Across the palace, Sergeant Rowan Hale stood outside the same chamber, assigned security by order of the Chancellor himself. The placement was deliberate. It was acknowledgement without praise. Inside, the Inquiry Council assembled. Chancellor Everon presided. Advocates sat on one side. Senior officials and royal representatives sat on the other. Queen Marielle entered last, composed, deliberate, certain of her standing. The doors closed. Everon spoke first. "This inquiry concerns conduct, authority, and the treatment of dignity within this institution," he said. "We will proceed without interruption." Witness accounts were presented again, this time aligned and structured. Video footage played silently, capturing the precise moment when the gown tore and the instant when Rowan moved. Frame by frame, tent revealed itself without commentary. Princess Alara watched without flinching. Then Queen Marielle stood. "This narrative distorts context," she said. "Guidance has always been firm but benevolent." The reaction exaggerated the moment. Everon turned to Alara. "Do you wish to respond?" he asked. "Yes," Alara replied. She rose. "When dignity is dismissed, harm follows," she said. That moment mattered because it showed how easily power ignores impact. Marielle countered calmly. "You mistake discipline for cruelty." Alara met her gaze. "Discipline corrects behavior," she said. "Cruelty diminishes identity." The words cut through the room. One counselor shifted. Another nodded slowly. Rowan listened from outside, expression unchanged, though his attention sharpened. Everon folded his hands. "Authority requires restraint," he said. The inquiry recognizes repeated patterns of disregard. Marielle's composure tightened. "This institution does not yield to emotion," she replied. Everin answered evenly. "It must yield to responsibility." The council withdrew for deliberation. Time stretched outside. News traveled. Staff gathered quietly. Guards spoke in low voices. The palace felt suspended between what had been and what must follow. Rowan stood firm, posture exact. Captain Reed joined him briefly. "They will decide today," Reed said. Rowan nodded. "They already have." The doors opened again. The atmosphere shifted. Everin stood. "The inquiry concludes that authority was misused to control and diminish," declared. "Corrective measures take effect immediately." Queen Marielle stiffened. "All ceremonial authority regarding Princess Alara transfers to an independent guardianship council." Everin continued. "Oversight expands across all royal functions involving minors." A ripple moved through the chamber, and regarding Sergeant Rowan Hale, Everon said, Turning slightly, Rowan stepped forward when summoned. "The inquiry recognizes your intervention as protective conduct aligned with duty of care," Everin stated. "No disciplinary action will follow." Relief did not appear on Rowan's face. Only resolve. Queen Marielle spoke once more. "This undermines tradition," she said. Everin answered calmly. "Tradition survives when it adapts." A silence followed. Princess Alara exhaled slowly. The weight she had carried loosened. Not gone, but lighter. She did not smile. She stood taller as the chamber emptied. Rowan remained at his post until released. Ilara approached him near the corridor. "They decided," she said. "They listened," Rowan replied. She nodded. Outside the palace, a quiet crowd had formed. Not cheering, watching, waiting. News reached them quickly. Change had been chosen that evening. The great hall lights dimmed earlier than usual. No reception followed. No statements rushed to the press. The palace allowed the truth to settle without disguise. Princess Alara walked the gallery once more. This time without escort beside her, only at distance. She paused where it had happened. She did not feel shame. She felt clarity. Rowan resumed his watch beneath the archway. It's the same stone beneath his boots, the same air moving through the corridor. Yet the palace felt different now. Power had faced resistance, and it had yielded. The hall that once protected silence had turned toward accountability. Only one chapter remained, not of judgment, but of healing. Healing did not arrive with applause. It entered Ashburn Palace quietly, through altered routines and softened voices, through choices that asked permission instead of demanding obedience. The corridors remained the same, yet the way people moved through them changed. Awareness replaced assumption. Care replaced control. Princess Alara woke early on her first morning without scheduled appearances. Sunlight filtered through tall windows and warmed the stone floor near her bed. For the first time in weeks, her chest felt light enough to breathe deeply. She sat up, wrapped in a simple robe, and listened to the palace waking around her. It sounded gentler. Lady Serene knocked and waited. "You choose today," she said when Alara opened the door. "What you want." "When you want it," Lara smiled faintly. Choice felt new. It felt powerful. She chose the gardens. Outside, the roses stood in neat rows, morning dew, clinging to petals. Ilara walked slowly, touching leaves, grounding herself in small sensations. She stopped where the ivy climbed the wall and closed her eyes. Memory surfaced, then passed. It no longer commanded her. Sergeant Rowan Hale watched from a respectful distance. His duties had shifted again. He now trained new guards assigned to protective detail. His instruction focused less on posture and more on perception. "Notice hesitation," he told them. "Notice silence. Danger often whispers." The lesson spread quickly. Guards listened differently. They asked questions before issuing commands. They learned that dignity required vigilance. One afternoon, Ilara asked to speak with Rowan privately. They met near the fountain in the east courtyard, the same place where she had once stood, frozen beneath too many eyes. The stone looked ordinary now, harmless. "I wanted to thank you," she said. Rowan inclined his head. "You owe nothing." "I know," she replied. "I still choose gratitude." She handed him a folded note inside. Only one line rested on the page. "You stood so. I could stand later." Rowan folded it carefully and placed it inside his uniform pocket. Not as a symbol, but as a reminder. The palace changed in visible ways. New oversight councils convened regularly. Advocates held authority. Training protocols adjusted across every level of service. Silence no longer passed for loyalty. Questions became welcome. Queen Marielle withdrew from public engagements involving Ilara. Her influence remained, yet it no longer extended unchecked. Power had learned boundary. Months passed. Ilara returned to her studies with renewed focus. She read history not as inheritance but as lesson. She wrote reflections that surprised her tutors with clarity and empathy. She learned that leadership did not require distance. It required understanding one evening. She addressed a small gathering in the great library. "I speak as myself," she said, "not as symbol." Her words carried across shelves lined with centuries of thought. "I believe dignity must never depend on silence." She continued, "Protection must not wait for harm to become visible." Those who listened remembered. On the anniversary of the reception, the palace marked the day without ceremony. A small plaque appeared near the fountain. Simple and unadorned. It read, "Protection begins with belief." Ilara stood beside it, older in posture, steadier in presence. She did not flinch at the memory. She acknowledged it. Rowan stood nearby, posture exact, eyes calm. He had not changed. The world around him had. A young guard approached him later that day. "Sir," the guard said, "I noticed something today." A child hesitated near the gallery. "I asked first." Rowan nodded. "That matters." The palace lights glowed softly that night, not brighter. Not grander, truer. Elleray returned to her chamber and opened the window. Cool air moved through the room. She breathed deeply and smiled, not because everything had healed, but because healing had begun. Down in the courtyard, Rowan resumed his watch beneath the archway. Stone beneath his boots. Quiet in the air. Purpose in his stance. The palace stood as it always had. What changed was what it protected. And in that change, a future formed. One built on courage. One shaped by empathy. One where dignity did not need to be defended alone.